In this lesson, we'll have the program pick a random word for the user to guess. I've provided a file of 342 common four-letter words. But first, your program must declare an array to hold those 342 words. In previous lessons, you listed the contents when you declared the array. However, this time, you'll need to declare an empty array to be filled later when you read the file. Hi, I'm Annette Gotland. I'm the author of the Do-It-Yourself Java Games books. I teach Java programming through creating games. Welcome to the video version of my books. We're currently in the Text Games video series, TG, the first of 4 types of games series. The focus of this series is to cover the fundamentals of Java programming. You'll learn how, when, and why Java programs are written the way they are. This series has 16 projects. Each project assumes you already have the skills taught in the previous projects. A link to the entire Text Games playlist is provided in the description below. We're currently working on the 14th project, TG14, Word Mastermind. The goal in the Word Mastermind game is to guess a 4-letter word. A clue will contain an O for each correct letter you guessed in the correct position, and an X for each correct letter you guessed in the wrong position, like this. This is lesson TG14.5, where you'll learn to declare an empty array so you may fill the contents of that array later. Note, you should have downloaded gamesresources.zip from www.gotlandsoftware.com/DIY Java Games in an earlier lesson and extracted it into your Eclipse Workspace folder. One of the extracted files, wordmastermind.txt, is needed for this lesson. You can declare an empty array as long as you know the number of items that will eventually be put into the array. Previously, we initialized the contents when we declared the array. For example, to declare and initialize a string array named animals and initialize it with 4 animals, we could declare it like this: string animals equals elephant, giraffe, penguin, monkey. To declare an empty string array named animals to hold 4 strings with contents set later, we could declare it like this: string animals, square brackets, equals new string, square brackets with a 4. Exercise 1. Declare an empty array. Pause the video if you need more time in any of these exercises. If you want to see how I would complete any of the listings, please refer to the completed listings at the end of this video. First, add a variable named number of words, whose initial value is the number of words in the file, 342. Then add an empty string array named words, whose size is the number of words in the file. Hint, use the number of words variable. Run it. What happened? It should run the same as it had before. One of the files you should have downloaded in an earlier lesson is a file named wordmastermind.txt. You'll use it for this program. Do you remember how to read from a file? Exercise 2. Fill the array. First, copy the wordmastermind.txt file from the Eclipse Workspace folder and put it in the Word Mastermind folder in the Eclipse Workspace folder. Then put the name of the file, wordmastermind.txt, into a string named file name. Then open the file by that name. Hint, use Quick Fix to import the required reader and file classes. Next, loop through all the words in the file. Read one line at a time and put its value in the next index of the words array. Hint, use a for loop and number of words. Then close the file. Next, add code to handle the exceptions file not found exception and IO exception. If the program is unable to read from a file, it shouldn't run any of the rest of the program. Hint, the entire rest of the constructor should be in the try block. Hint, include the name of the file in the messages in the exceptions. The syntax errors should now all be gone. Run it. What happened? It should still run the same as before with no runtime errors. You now have a list of 4-letter words in an array named words. Let's add code to choose a random word for the user to guess. Exercise 3. Pick a random word. Add code to pick a random word from the list and assign it to word. Hint, use random's nextInt method to pick a number between 0 and the number of words in words. Run it. What happened? It should have given you a random word for you to guess. It's easier to test the program when you know the random word it chose. Remember, you can always add system.out.println statements to print the word in the console pane. But don't forget to remove all those system.out.println statements when you're done with the program. Next, let's add code to ask the user if they want to play again. If not, we should close the window. Exercise 4. Play again. After the words are read from the file, create a boolean named repeat, initially true. Then loop through the rest of the code in the try block while repeat is true. Next, after you congratulate the user, ask them if they want to play again. Hint: use prompt for yes, no, and put the response in repeat. Then print a blank line between games. And finally, close the window if they don't want to play again. Hint: use system.exit. Run it. What happened? After you guess the word, it should ask if you want to play again. If you answer yes, it should give you a clue for a new word. If you answer no, it should close the window. Key points and more. Empty array. You don't have to initialize the contents of an array when you declare it. However, you must assign values into each item of the array before you try to use the array contents. To declare an empty array, put the expected number of items for the array in square brackets. For example, to declare an empty array named names to hold 10 strings, declare it like this. Key points and more. Word Mastermind.txt. The Word Mastermind.txt file was created from Dr. Edward Fry's instant word list, high-frequency words. The Fry word list is claimed to contain the most used words in reading and writing for young readers. Here are the completed listings for all the exercises in this video. This is the end of the 5th lesson in the Word Mastermind project. Your program is now complete. All that's left is to export the program along with its required text file so you can run it outside of Eclipse and share it with family and friends. But there's also one more code change I would recommend, and that's to make a couple of variables into static final variables. As you'll see, the file name and the number of words in the file are perfect candidates to be static final variables.